Hi everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this Crystal Lattice Bracelet featuring our new Potomac crystal cylinders. If you need any of the materials, remember they're below me in the little drop-down links that says Shop Online. Gather up your materials and join me in making this fun yet sparkly bracelet. So the first thing that we're going to do to start off our project is to add our button. And I have two needles. I have two size 12 needles on some .006 Wildfire beading thread that's about 5 feet long. I'm using the green since I'm doing this on film and it's a little bit easier to see. Normally, because I'm using that transparent aqua color, I would go ahead and use a white thread. But the first thing I want you to do is to put onto your needle a 15, one of the Potomac crystal cylinders, and a 15. You're going to drop your needles and thread then, one in one hole of the button, one in the other hole. Now you don't want these sitting side by side, you want them sitting in diagonal holes. After doing that and making sure you have equal amounts of thread on either side here, then you're going to put on two 15s, one on the right needle, one on the left needle. The next step to get started in our bracelet is to add an 11/0 seed beads with both threads going through that 11/0 in the same direction. If you would rather use a metal clasp, go ahead and put a wire guard on here, and then the 11/0s right after that going through both needles together again. From here, we're going to separate out our threads, and I want you to put two of your Duracoat galvanized gold 15/0s on each needle, one that has two on the left, one that has two on the right. From here, you're going to go ahead and put on two 11s. Two on the left needle, two on the right. Because we're working simultaneously with two needles, it's always going to be mirrored which one occurs on each side. So every time you do something on the right, you're also doing it on the left. From here, we're going to put on our first of our iris duos. They are flat on one side and rounded on the other, so you want to make sure that that flat side is towards the bottom and the rounded side is going to be facing upward. For the first one, honestly, it doesn't matter because that's going to establish what is the top and bottom of this crystal lattice bracelet. That's going to get ready then to get our pattern started. Now that our threads are sitting opposite, they're going to kind of go to the right and the left and maintain and stay on their sides. After getting your iris duo in place, what we're going to do is decorate the side of the iris duo. I've already done it on the left-hand side and now I'm going to do it on the right-hand side. Same exact thing. Coming out of the iris duo, go ahead and grab three 15s, one of your 11/0 seed beads, and then three more 15s. You're going to circle the needle around, going back through the iris duo from the bottom or the hole closest to the button towards the top. Again, this is going to bring those threads and pull them right around so they're working to kind of frame out that iris duo. From here, we're going to go into adding our center crystal. To get to adding the center crystal, I want you to use two 11s and then one of your 15s and then one of your 4mm crystals. And this is on the right-hand needle that I did this. I'm going to do the same thing on the left-hand needle. Just like we went through that 11/0 at the start, with both needles, we're going to go through the crystal with both needles as well. So you're going to do two 11s, and this is, I should have said earlier, the 15/0 is the crystal full Labrador in the Miyuki brand. Going through then, you're going both needles through the same direction in the crystal. You can see that kind of separates that out and makes that into a V. From here, I'm going to be spinning around and adding in the Moby duos. So we're going to separate out the needles. If you can keep track of what was on the left-hand side stays to the left, what was on the right stays to the right. It's not going to matter as we go in and kind of grab on to the Moby duos the second time around. From here, what we're going to do is circling around, you're going to add in three 15s, then a Moby duo, and then three 15s. When you add in your Moby duos, they are going to circle around. You want to make sure that they're going to sit correctly. Just like our iris duos have a flat top and bottom, so do the Moby duos. So when you are stringing your Moby duo on, you want to make sure that as it comes around on the side here, that it is going to sit, that the flat side is down. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this off to the left, since it was that direction. Push that over there. And then I'm going to pick up the other needle and do the exact same thing. So, coming off here, push that down next to place and do the same thing with that Moby Duo. So 3 15s go on. Then you're gonna put on your next Moby Duo. The Moby Duo and the Iris Duo I decided to do in the Pastel Petrol, not to confuse you, but because I liked the colors being the same. When you're going back through, you can put the Moby Duo flat down on your finger, and you're gonna go through the left-hand hole when it's on the left side, and the right-hand hole when it's on the right side. Going then back up through the 4mm crystal that sits this Moby off to the right. Again, give a nice tight pull after each one so that way you make sure you don't see tons of extra thread hanging out in there. Coming out through the crystal, you're gonna separate out your needles again. On goes one of your 15s, 2 11s, and then you're gonna put on your Iris Duo. While I have this needle in my hand, I'm gonna go ahead and add my 3 15s, 1 11, 3 15s onto my needle. I'm gonna let that all drop down next to that crystal and the Mobies. Make sure that Iris Duo is sitting correctly, and then you're going back up through the Iris Duo, which is going to put those seed beads along the outer edge. The reason I used an 11 on the outer edge is because that's what we're gonna use to catch on as we add our cylinders and come back down the project. So from here on the left-hand side, we're gonna mimic it, adding 1 15, 2 11s. This time the Iris Duo is already there, so you're gonna pick it up, put the left needle through the left hole of that Iris Duo. Give a nice tight pull, making sure that it's sitting nice and flat. Add in those 3 15s, 1 11, 3 15s, and then again circling around through the Iris Duo and back towards the top, pushing those seed beads out towards the outer edge. Just like I said with the Moby Duos kind of hanging out there, they will sit and cooperate, so will these seed beads along the center of the Iris Duo, because we're gonna be attaching onto those 11Os. This is the beginning set of the actual lattice bracelet. It's just going to continue now. So you're gonna add your 2 11s, 1 15 through the crystal, circle around adding your Moby, and then do the same thing on the other side. You're gonna do this the whole length of your bracelet, so about 6.5 inches if you're doing a standard 7-ish, 6 3/4, and we'll do our loop then, and then come back down the project. So once we get to the point that it is long enough, we're gonna go ahead and put on our loop for our clasp before we come back down. Now I'm coming out of my last Iris Duo, and you can see it's kind of sitting wonky. That's because we're going to make it sit correctly. And because we don't have a 2-hole bead here, it's kind of going every which way. However, we have the 2-hole bead here that we're going to link on, and then when we add in our crystals, it'll create that nice lattice look. From here on the right-hand side, when you get to the end, I have on 2 11s, 1 15, and then 1 11O seed bead. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So you're gonna pick up your needle, do 2 11s, 1 15, and then instead of adding another 11, we are going to share that 11 with the needles going through in the same direction. That's gonna make us have a little V, just like the other side where we had the V and then the button. We used 2 seed beads here because I wanted to have a little bit more room for a loop. Here on this side, it doesn't really matter because it is the loop. So it doesn't matter whether or not you take your right or your left needle, but you're gonna take one of your needles in hand, and I'm gonna actually do the silver and gold mix of seed beads. So I'm gonna do 11, then 15, 11, 15, 11, 15, and just pick up kind of every other to get that decorated loop. If you want to, you can do a peyote loop as well, kind of changing up the design there. But the other thing to do, that if you want a regular clasp, go ahead and put on a wire guard as well as your clasp, and that's going to function as this end. Even if you're doing the wire guard and the clasp, you're still going to reinforce it like I'm going to do with the other needle, and give that nice 2 strands going through the clasp. The clasp section is always the area where you're gonna have the most tension, because it is where it's kind of pulled on the most to take on and off the project. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out a couple more 11s, add in probably about 30 beads total is going to be your count for your button loop, so that way your button can fit inside. And once you have those beads on, I'm gonna let them fall down. I've got a couple more to go here. and then I'm going to sew back through that 11-0 that my needle is coming out of. You want to make sure to end on a 15 if you are doing an alternate pattern. That way you have 2 15s coming into that 1 11. 2 11s coming into an 11 is going to be a little bit thicker. It's going to sit a little bit more bubbled. So I'm coming back down the 11-0 seed bead. Once I have my loop, I'm going to make sure before I do anything else that my button is going to sit through my loop, which it will, without being too tight or too loose. Go ahead and now pick up your other thread and needle. Reinforce the loop, sewing back through the entire thing and also coming through the 11-0. So you should have 2 strands coming out to your 11-0 seed bead, and then you'll be ready to progress. So coming down the side here, I'm going to come out through the 11-0 that sits right at the point of the iris duo. We're going to catch on to all of those 11-0s, and that's what's going to pull kind of that point and make that iris duo look decorated. So we were coming out the 11-0, we're going down the 15, the 2 11s, and then through the 3 15s and the 1 11 that sits on the side. So you'll have 1 needle coming out the left hand side and 1 needle coming out the right hand side. I want you to make sure and give a nice tight pull to each side so that way you don't see a lot of thread gap in there as we're coming around. So we are going to be catching on to our Moby duo. You're going to want to make sure that your thread's kind of not twisted, that all your iris duos and your Moby duos are sitting up as you come down and up the project. So coming out the end of the bracelet, you're coming out the 11-0, and we're going to progress by adding a 15, one of the cylinders, and a 15. You then sew through that Zoli duo, or through the Moby duo bead. When you're coming out the Moby duo bead, we're going to decorate it just a tiny bit. Add 2 15s, and you can skip this if you want to. Go down through that first hole of the Moby duo. Add 2 more 15s. And then up through that hole that you just came out of. Forcing those seed beads to kind of sit in that place along the side. From here, add a 15. Make sure that your iris duo is sitting correctly. Grab the 11-0. Sorry, 15 cylinder 15, and then go through the 11-0. That's going to pull that into kind of that rounded shape. From here again, 15 cylinder 15. Make sure your Moby duos are sitting correctly. Through the second hole of the Moby duo. Then once you're there, it's time to decorate the side of the Moby duo. If you so choose, add 2 15s. Go down through the Moby duo through that first hole. Add 2 more 15s. And then go up through that second hole of the Moby duo, making sure that you're not sewing through any of those 15s as you go. So we're doing this on the right hand side, same thing down the left. 15, cylinder 15. See how that iris duo is flipped? Make sure to flip it back to this right side and go through the 11. So you've seen how simple it is to add in our crystal lattice. And I like these cylinders because they give like the best amount of space with a lot of bling going on there. So go ahead and put them on the right and the left. I'll do about 4 of them on the right, then I'll switch over, do 4 on the left, 4 on the right, 4 on the left, and keep going till you get back to the start of the project, till you get to that crystal button. So here at the end, after you add in all of your crystals, you're going to be coming out the last Moby duo, and you're going into that 15-0 that you're going in along the side normally. And you can see I sewed through the 3 15s that sat right after. And I already did this on the right hand side. And then you're going to go up through the 2 11s, the 15, and the 11 that sits right before the button. That's going to close off the crystal, and then you have that nice kind of rounded lattice look along the design. From here, I'm going to reinforce this button. Because you can't really see the second holes, what I'm going to do is just kind of do a little fun trick. I'm going to go and add 2 15s in the gold color, go up through the button, add another gold seed bead, and then come down through that same hole. Come out to the bottom of it and out those 2 15s right after. What that's going to do is just put that little gold bead so it's a little decoration right on the side of that top of that button. With the other needle then, we're going to do the same thing on the other side, coming out through that 11-0. Add 2 of your 15s, go up through the button. Add add a 15, and then back down through the button and back down through those 2 15s that you just added. And that's just to kind of cover up those holes and give a little look. You don't have to do that. That's up to you. Make sure you pull the extra because you don't want to see a lot of extra thread. From here, you're going to take your thread and needle and go up through the seed beads that lay next to it, which are also going to be attached to that crystal cylinder. Up through the 15, through the crystal cylinder, and down through the 15, and down through the hole in the button. Coming out here then, I'll make sure our thread end doesn't get attached. Coming out here then, we don't have any knots, we're good to go. I'm going to go through the 15s right after the back of the button and down through that 11L, down through all the seed beads along the side and out. What I want to do now is get my other thread and needle back to the same position so that way I can tie off the knot. To get there, I'm going to go down through the 11L, and it's getting tight in there. And I'm going to go down through the opposite side. So if you know he came down on the left-hand side, go ahead and come down reinforcing this on the right-hand side. I'm going to just kind of wiggle through that 11L, go through the seed beads along the side here, through the iris duo. You're not going to see it, even if you're using the white thread. I'm going to circle back through the iris duo, reversing my thread from one side to the other side. In the green color, you really don't see it. Take both of those threads and needles towards the back of the project. And then if you want to, you can keep your needles on and kind of weave back into the project. All I'm going to do, because of the nature of this project, is I can hide this pretty well. And I'm at the back here now. I'll just literally tie right over left, left over right, and then take my thread zap or a thread burner and burn off the thread edges. So it's a really, really simple ending to the design. That's the advantage of working with 2 needles at once. You can start really easily because you can generally put your clasp on first, and then the same with working with your 2 needles, you can put your end on the other way too. So then I'm going to go in with my thread zap or my thread burner, burn down the edges of those thread, and then burn it flush towards the project to finish off my crystal lattice bracelet. Everyone, thanks so much for watching this crystal lattice bracelet. Remember, if you need any of these fun, sparkly materials, you can shop with us online at PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.eu. We conveniently put little links below the video in the descriptions to shop now. Remember also, if you want to, you can give a little thumbs up as well as subscribe to this YouTube channel to get regular updates from us when we have new videos, new instructions, new product spotlights, as well as ways to make you a better beader. Thanks so much for watching and enjoy making your own crystal lattice bracelet.